Hey friends, okay, so this is part 4 of my video series on public education and why it's the most important issue to me and why I think that it should be for everyone because of the benefit that it has for pretty much every other issue that we care about. I made this video yesterday, and I tried to make it again, and every time I do it, I just talk way too long. I'm trying to make it shorter because there's just so much to this part of the issue. I want to talk about the purpose of education. And if you would go back and watch parts 1, 2, or 3 first, they're shorter. I'm trying to make these less than 15 minutes each. The first one is like 7 minutes, and I want to share with you that in part 3 I talked about the statistics and the data of how public education, some of the ways that public education is an investment and it benefits us as a society. But in this video, I want to talk about the purpose because I think you need to understand. And in part 2, I did share about my own reasons for why this is important to me. I do hope you will take the time to really think about it and understand, if this is something that's important to you too. And what I want to say about the purpose of education is that, the statistic I shared in the last video, one of the ones that I think is really important to look at, is that for every 1% of male high school graduates, so if we improve our high school graduation rates with boys up to just 1%, for every 1% we improve those graduation rates and get those boys graduated, that actually saves us $1 billion. $1 billion in public spending. And public spending could include public housing, it could include SNAP benefits, it could include health care, it can include incarceration. So there's a lot of benefit to increasing graduation rates. Kids that are at risk in general of graduating are going to be our lower socioeconomic. They're going to be our English learners, and they're going to be black men, to be quite frank. I want to talk a little bit about some of these overlapping issues in another video. So let me focus on this. So if there's anything that I'm saying that's a little bit alarmist to you, I encourage you to watch my other videos because maybe I will address it. Please don't come at me with negative and hate. I'm a learner too, and so if I mess up or I say something out of turn, I encourage you to correct me respectfully. I'm open to learning. I have literally been vulnerable to educate myself and learn some of the ways that I did not know about history. And I think I said in the last video or one of my last videos, or maybe it's another one that I made that I'll post later. I'm forgetting which order I did this in. But I do talk in one of my videos about encouraging you to, I'm not an expert on the history of racism, and I've learned a lot from Be the Bridge and Latasha Morrison. So I'll just throw that out there. I talk more about that in another video. But there's more to say about that, but I want to focus on this being that the at-risk rates are concerning for sure. And what, in my opinion, it is a very complex issue. I think it's very complex. I would not be able to just tell you that there's one reason why it's harder for men to graduate. What I will tell you, and boys might be able to tell me, is that in general, I think throughout history, when I was a kid, maybe when you were a kid, maybe people that are younger than me, that I'm in my 50s, I'm in my late 50s. When I was a kid, we all sat in desks, we sat facing forward, listening to the teacher give a lecture, or sometimes I had teachers that we would just copy notes and take a test on Friday. There was not a whole lot of necessarily interaction or creative learning. And I will still say, I have some favorite teachers that made learning fun, and I think that did make a difference. I think one of the ways that we have improved in that in the I've been teaching for over 30 years. So just since I started teaching, we've improved in things like flexible seating. Of course, there's technology tools that make it fun for kids, but I personally don't want us to completely rely on technology, especially in the younger ages. But doing brain breaks and turning something into a game, turning learning into an activity, or allowing the kids to move, and providing multiple learning styles, visual, audio, and tactile. Those are all ways that we help improve learning. And it's not just because I think what the problem is, and this is why I want to talk about the purpose of education, is that society as a whole, they may think, oh, wow, all those improvements are great. I love, my kids like school, whatever. But I think the older generation in particular, and there's a lot of people that are talking to their representatives, and so the representatives think that this is, what we need. And to be quite frank, they're getting campaign donations from billionaires who want to control what schools are doing. And it's literally, you follow the money and you're going to see for yourself. It's public information. It's out there. I think there's going to be possibly some sources that you don't like because you don't trust them. But I would encourage you to use your rational mind and see for yourself the money that if a rich billionaire who has charter schools gives money to a campaign of a leader here in Texas, our governor, and the State Board of Education candidates who approve charter school contracts, the governor approves, and State Board of Education, they approve testing contracts. TEA head of TEA is appointed by the governor. They approve what we're teaching. They approve the testing contracts and all the things. It's all connected. But that all they get in place because of running a campaign. How do they run their campaign? Rich donors who come in then later and say, well, I gave you that, $500,000 for your campaign. Therefore, it would be really great if you would approve my charter school contract. It'd be really great if we could be the ones that would do all your testing. This is what's happening at the top of the level here in Texas, okay? So I just throw that out there to you, not as a complaint, but as information. I'm not happy about it. I hope you're not happy about it. But there's a lot more involved in that. I just wanted to give you kind of an overview, because what they have decided is the purpose of public education is to basically teach whatever they think that we should be teaching. And the number one complaint I get from parents is about testing, or about behavior, or about how, whatever it is that they don't like that we're teaching. Like, those are the things that parents complain about. And most of those decisions are made by our state legislators, and our Republican Party has been in charge of Texas for 30 years. So I just wanted to throw out those facts and statistics, because when we look at the actual purpose of education, yes, it's for knowledge. Yes, we want our kids to have the tools and the knowledge to go into the workforce. That's what we have decided, is that they go to school, they go to college, they go into the workforce, they pay taxes, they have kids that go to school, go to college, go to the workforce. Okay, and it's a cycle that we've started. And what I want to encourage you to just consider is that, you know, my personal opinion, based on looking at some of the data, I'm not an expert in it, of course, like I've already said, but when I've looked at the data, we have boys in high school who are getting into trouble, and it's happening in elementary school. And this is generalizing, because they don't know what to do with their emotions. They are told they can't cry when they're little, and so they have to be tough. And so then they grow up, because we have cut the opportunity to learn about social emotional learning in elementary school. For some people, it's become a bad word, and it's not. It's essential. It is essential skills that we need to teach our kids, because if they don't learn how to deal with conflict and just regular communication between two kids playing soccer at recess, if they don't know how to problem solve and negotiate and stand up for themselves and work out their differences, which is a normal human experience. And yeah, they might cry about it, they might get emotional about it, but if we don't let these boys learn to deal with it, and you know what? They're just going to shut down. They're just learning to shut it down, and then they don't know how to feel anything, because you can't just shut down part of your nervous system. You shut down all of your nervous system. And so kids don't know how to be appropriately competitive when they get into team sports. They get in trouble. They get frustrated when they can't learn, and they can't take in information because they've got stress at home. And so then they learn to just shut things down, and then they're not retaining information. Then they start feeling shame or embarrassment because they can't learn what they're supposed to be learning. If they want to be a pro athlete, but they can't, they don't have the precursor to that for learning, then they, in Texas, we have no pass, no play, so then they don't qualify. Anyway, it kind of snowballs. And again, I'm generalizing here. This is not across the board. But I'm saying, if we're looking at how do we help improve graduation rates for our men, it's going to go back to elementary school. And the other statistic I shared about for every $1 we spend on early childhood education, it benefits us $7 in future public spending. We are missing the mark when we spend all of our money on testing and these fancy programs that the state thinks that we need. And they think, quite honestly, I don't think we need one-to-one computers in elementary school. I don't think we need all of that. I think that we need technology. It has its benefits. I think that we need to get back to, if parents want us to get back to teaching, and you hear all the book banners talk about this, I'm in agreement. I don't want to ban books. I think kids should be exposed child developmentally appropriate material. It's definitely not going to be some of the things that the State Board of Education is wanting us to do. Anyway, that's another video I'm going to talk about later. But the purpose of education is not just to teach them knowledge, to have a babysitter for our kids to go to, and for to go get a job. That's an important part of it in the process. What's more important is that we develop good humans, good citizens. We need to let our kids play. We need to let them communicate with each other. We need to teach parents about the importance of reading, and reading often, where kids actually have books in their hands. We need to figure out social programs that are good this is not socialism. This is benefiting us with our tax dollars, okay? Where we invest in early childhood, getting books in the hands of kids, get readers reading to them where they can see the words. That's the best way for kids to expand their vocabulary, to expand their knowledge, and then they become better learners because we're actually also developing the neurological pathways when their brain is so malleable and ready like a little sponge. When we do that early, before the age of 7, we are creating a lifelong learner who is then going to go and learn that critical thinking skills. They're going to be the creative people that are going to wonder and imagine. And when we allow them to dream and imagine and be, imaginary play, we actually create pathways that are going to be the kids in the future, 20 years from then, are going to be the ones that cure cancer. They create some creative business solution for your business. They are going to be the ones that are going to be using this technology, how fast it's changing. They're going to be able to use it for good. And the most important reason for education is that kids will have more successful relationships and be a more positive citizen. They're going to be more active in civics. We need to all be understanding our rights. We need to be able to really understand the Constitution and the amendments and be able to argue and effectively defend our rights. We need to know what to say to an officer when we get pulled over. We know in our rights. We need to be able to protest appropriately. We need to be able to serve on a jury. And you know how many people tell you to, try to skip out on jury service? We need positive, educated people serving on juries so that people get fair trials. We need people that are going to grow up and become educated workers in the workforce that are not just producing knowledge and producing an outcome, but that actually can communicate effectively and positively with their coworkers. They're emotionally regulated because they feel confident in their knowledge of not just information, but how to process and how to work through conflict. They have the emotional stability, because they have thought through what their needs are, and they have learned to recognize that we can see things a different way and still get along. This is what's missing that we're not teaching. And we can't just teach it. We can't just open a book and say, here you go, learn that. We teach creativity and critical thinking by allowing kids to disagree, but supporting them through conflict resolution. And yes, they might need to read books with, challenging situations and people that are different from them. And I think we are missing the mark, especially, and I'm sorry, I don't want to make anybody feel bad, but white parents, if your goal is, if you have ever had the thought in your mind that you're trying to keep your kids away from some certain group, you are doing them a disservice. You are doing them a disservice. You're actually doing harm, because they're not going to learn how to be a better human unless they learn to do life with different people. And so to me, that's the biggest benefit of public education is especially if you're in a diverse school, your kids are getting the real tools of life to be a good citizen. And that's what we want. We don't want to just save money on tax dollars, which I'm sharing all of that because I think that's what people like to hear. But you want your kids to be well-rounded. And it's not even just if you don't have kids. You want the kids in your neighborhood. You want the kids in your apartment complex. You want your coworkers' kids to be good citizens. We want that as an investment for all of us. So stay tuned for more.